State-owned company Aurora Energy has been criticised for buying concrete and steel power poles from a New Zealand supplier rather than purchasing locally. TasRail is another taxpayer-owned business that has sent money overseas using a Chinese company to replace its outdated rolling stock. The company says it's frustrated local suppliers can't offer competitive alternatives to international companies. In an unorthodox move, TasRail has revealed the reasons behind its latest procurement decision to 7:30 Tasmania. Tyson Shine reports.
Most of our rolling stock is everyone's hand-me-downs over the last 40 plus years, so most of it near life expired, most of it obsolete.
TasRail's Chief Executive Damien White looks over old infrastructure that's been dogging the expansion of the state-owned transport company.
These wagons are at least 30 or 40 years old. I think they're old wagons from South Australia.
Early last year, the company began to look for replacement wagons and carriages, a contract worth almost $140 million. Officially, the tender process opened in April 2012. Before then, TasRail met with potential local suppliers in an attempt to put them on the right track.
For them to understand the sorts of things we were after and for us to understand what the local capability actually was.
Despite the help, Tasmanian companies came back with uncompetitive bids.
We were happy to consider a small premium for local manufacturer, but the quantum between the successful bidder and the local manufacturers was quite significant. In percentage figures, it was well over 50%.
Certainly the figure was surprising, and again you'd argue that it would be very difficult for TasRail to buy that product locally. Certainly no one wants to see a market that's distorted in that way.
At an emergency jobs creation forum in August, Tasmania's Premier Lara Giddings heard concerns from local business groups. Acting on those concerns, Lara Giddings used her role as State Treasurer to issue an instruction to all government departments to encourage them to buy local. A new clause was added to the rules surrounding procurement to ensure agencies actively seek bids from local businesses. The Premier promised to review how state contracts were awarded
and how we might be able to break those down into smaller tenders that help Tasmanian companies be able to compete for them.
Shadow Treasurer Peter Gutwin agrees that breaking tenders up would help local businesses. He questions why the new procurement policy only extends to government departments and not to state-owned businesses known as GBEs.
I don't think the government has gone far enough. In Tasmania, we have around 36,000 small businesses, 38,000 businesses in total. Government's one of the biggest purchasers in the state, and it's important that we ensure that for the benefit of jobs in our own economy, that Tasmanian businesses get a fair go.
Why was it only rolled out to encompass government departments and not GBEs?
So it covers government departments that are covered by the Financial Management and Audit Act. It doesn't cover GBEs per se, but what the government's expectations are around GBEs, which of course are managed by boards, is that they will have a policy in place that's robust, but and that those policies do give effect to government policy, particularly around making sure that there is value for money for the procurements that they do, but also that they provide opportunities for local businesses.
In TasRail's case, the company investigated a number of options to try and open opportunities for local suppliers. That included splitting the tender for the almost 200 replacement wagons that were needed. From 8 initial tenders, the company narrowed the field down to 5, representing local, national and international businesses. In the end, the state-owned company couldn't justify the price difference between a fledgling local producer and a well-established Chinese manufacturer.
So 50% meant for us either finding more money, and there isn't any, or simply buying less wagons. And for us, that simply meant our plan to change rail freight in Tasmania would have been severely compromised. Well, certainly at least one bidder, their best and final offer, if you like, included all the intermodal wagons, the container wagons being manufactured in China. So pretty well more than half the fleet was going to be manufactured in China in any case.
If we're spending government money, whether it be a government department or a government business, that we're getting the best bang for our buck, and that may not simply always be the price.
We don't want businesses in Tasmania that are so reliant on government. They can't survive without that sort of contract because eventually the contract will go, and what will happen is the business will struggle to survive.
What the government really wants to see is that the government departments, but also GBEs, and when they make these decisions, that they make sure that there is value for money, because at the end of the day, these are taxpayers' dollars.
In the Launceston rail yards, workers clean cement off old carriages. At Bell Bay, trial wagons are arriving from China. The company hopes to improve its productivity by 30% and has secured a major contract with mining company Venture Minerals in the state's northwest. The state government will review its procurement policy early next year and hasn't ruled out expanding it. Business groups are questioning whether it'll help in the long run.
This just isn't in the realm of Tasmanian government or the state government. The federal government have a role here to play too, and I think the great example of that is that ration packs for the Australian Army are made in New Zealand. They should be made in Scottsdale. We have a facility there. We have local farms that are desperately looking at ways to sell their product. And again, I think there's that need for government to have a local benefits test in their tendering process.